Lizzie Borden, top of page 181. Day 5, Friday, June 9th, 1893. Assistant Marshal Fleet's credibility was on the line. The day before, Fleet caused a mild sensation with the revelation that he had run across the handless hatchet the very day of the murders. So far as the public knew, it had not been discovered until Monday, August 8th, by Officer Medley. Fleet had said nothing about all this at the preliminary hearing, but at the trial he stood in the witness box claiming to be the first to have seen the alleged murder weapon. Not only that, he gave conflicting testimony regarding the handle stump. The afternoon before, he had sworn to Mr. Moody that the broken part was coated with ashes like the blade, a tiny detail, but one the defense was eager to seize. If that break was as dusty as the blade, then the hatchet could not have been broken by the murder, but on the morning of day 5, Governor Robinson tried to confirm the fact. Fleet reversed his story. "I didn't notice any ashes on the break. New," he told Robinson. Into this quagmire stepped Officer Moley. Michael Millay was the officer Bridget had led to the box of tools, by all accounts the first policeman to lay eyes on the box itself. According to Fleet, Millay had been there when he discovered the handleless hatchet lying in the bottom, and Millay had seen him put it back into the box. If anyone could clear things up, Michael Millay was the man to do it. He did not look like a powder magazine on the point of exploding, but that is what he proved to be, the Rochester Democrat Chronicle wrote. Without any fuss, Millay verified for the court that he had indeed directed Fleet to the box where the first 2 hatchets had been found. "What did you do after you showed him the box?" Mr. Moody asked. He took a hatchet out of there. Millay described the hatchet had, just as Fleet had done, smaller than the rest, both sides of the blade covered in ashes, its handle freshly broken. The ashes, Millay said, looked so as though it were rubbed on there, wiped on, would be my way of expressing it, but he noticed no ashes on the broken handle. "What did Mr. Fleet do with it after each of you had observed it?" Moody asked. "I believe he put it back. That ought to have settled it." Then came Governor Robinson's turn into Millay. "Do you know anything of what became of the box?" Robinson asked. "No, sir." "Nothing else was taken out of it while you were there?" "Nothing but the hatchet and parts of the handle," Millay said. "Well, parts," Robinson said dismissively. He indicated the little stump of wood that had been removed from the eye of the hatchet at Harvard's chemistry lab. "That piece?" "That piece, yes," Millay said. "Well, that was in the eye, wasn't it?" "Yes." "Then there was another piece?" "Another piece of what?" And then Millay dropped his thunderbolt. "Handle." Governor Robinson gasped. District Attorney Knowlton and Mr. Moody sat rigid in their seats, dumbstruck. Since the opening argument, the prosecution had been steering the jury towards the conclusion that this handleless hatchet was the murder weapon, its blade clumsily masked with ashes and the blood-stained handle broken off and tossed into the stove. With one word, the state's own witness had blown the theory to shreds. If the handle had been there all along, clean, dry, and bloodless, that hatchet could not have been used to kill the Bordens. The defense was no less astounded. The courtroom reeled in silent shock as Robinson continued rapid fire. "Well, did you take it out of the box?" "I did not." "Did you see it taken out?" "I did not." "Who took it out?" "Mr. Fleet took it out." "Mr. Fleet took it out?" "Yes, sir." "You were there?" "I was there." "Anybody else?" "Not as I know of." "Did Mr. Fleet put that back too?" "He did." Robinson glared at the prosecution's table. "Have you that handle here, gentlemen?" "No," Knowlton said. "You haven't it in your possession, may I ask?" "Never had it." "The government does not know where it is?" Knowlton sounded like another man entirely. "I don't know where it is," he said. "This is the first time I've ever heard of it." Minutes later, Assistant Marshal Fleet was back on the stand. Officer Mulhay had been sent to an anteroom to ensure the 2 officers could not discuss their conflicting testimony. Robinson asked Fleet to restate what he found in the box. "I found a hatchet head, the handle broken off, together with some other tools in there, and the iron that was inside there." The governor held up the handleless hatchet head. "Was this what you found?" "Yes, sir." "Did you find anything else except old tools?" "No, sir." "Sure about that?" "Yes, sir." As he done with Millay, Robinson indicated the wooden stub. "Now, if I understand you," he continued, "this piece was in the eye of the hatchet." "Yes, sir." Fleet answered. "That has been driven out since?" "By somebody." "Yes, not you, by you?" "And taking these 2 together, that was all you found in the box except some old tools which you did not take out at all. Is that right?" "That is all we found in connection with the hatchet." "You did not find the handle, the broken piece, not at all?" "No, sir." According to Fleet, Millay had not removed any handle from the box. So far as Fleet knew, there was no handle to remove. "So you looked in so that you could have seen it if it was in there?" "Yes, sir." "You have no doubt about that?" Have you at all? What? That you did not find the other piece of the handle that fitted on there? No, sir. You would have seen it if it had been, wouldn't you? Yes, sir. It seems to me I should. The courtroom shivered with excitement as John Fleet stepped down. How could the two officers' testimony be so drastically different? Day 6, Saturday, June 10th, 1893. By Saturday, the carnations on the judge's bench were finally wilting, or rather half of them were, according to the Boston Herald. The vase of red blossoms, symbolizing bloody guilt, hung their heads. If the flowers are any indication, the prosecution needed to revive its case. The task fell to Inspector William Medley. Medley testified to arriving at the Borden house just a little after 11:40. He circled the perimeter and tried the cellar door, locked, before going in and speaking to Lizzie Borden upstairs. Something she said about being up in the barn gave Medley an idea that he went outside. Policemen were all about the house and the yard, but the barn door was shut, fastened with a hasp and an iron pin. Medley pulled the pin and went in. He headed straight for the stairs. 3 or 4 steps from the top, Medley paused in the stairwell and looked around the loft. Nothing seemed to have been disturbed, not even the dust on the floor. He stood down level with the floorboards and peered across them. If Lizzie Borden had been walking across the floor, Inspector Medley reasoned, shouldn't there be some marks in the dust? I didn't see any, Medley said, and I reached out my hand to see if I could make an impression on the floor of the barn, and I did by putting my hand out in some fashion, and found that I made an impression on the barn floor. How distinctly could you see the marks which you made with your hand? Mr. Moody asked. I could see them quite distinctly when I looked for them, Medley answered. Go on and describe anything else which you did. Moody prompted, perhaps twiddling his coat-tails in anticipation. Those who watched Moody carefully had noticed his habit of rolling or bundling up his coat-tails when his questions went well. Then I stepped up on the top and took 4 or 5 steps on the outer edge of the barn floor, the edge nearest the stairs, then came up to see if I could discern those, and I did. When he stooped back down, level with the floor, his footprints were plainly visible. Did you see the other footsteps in the dust than those which you made yourself? Moody asked. No, sir. Governor Robinson did not dwell much on Inspector Medley's troubling information about the barn. Instead, he focused most of his questions on the handless hatchet. In his usual genial way, Robinson gathered as many details about the hatchet as he could. After all, Medley was the officer who'd first recognized the hatchet head as potentially important. Little in Medley's cross-examination seemed significant, except for his opinion that the ashes on the hatchet head were coarse. That was new. All the other officers said they were fine. And you didn't look to see whether the other contents of the box were about in the same condition? Robinson asked. I did not. In fact, I didn't go back there after showing it to the captain, Medley said. He and Captain Desmond examined it, and then, Medley said, he wrapped it up in a piece of brown paper and carried it straight down to Marshal Hilliard's office. You wrapped it up in a paper and folded it up, Robinson repeated. Heaven only knows what prompted him to suggest. Perhaps you will illustrate how you folded it up, the paper? Medley took a piece of brown paper from Robinson and folded the hatchet head into it. I am not very tidy at such things, he apologized, handing the little parcel to Robinson. Now that as near as I can think is about how I did it. And you put it in your pocket. I put it in my pocket.